Hello again, everyone. I'm here to bring you a national championship preview for this year's NCAA Division I Track and Field Championships. Before I get into it, I want to give a quick shout out to my sister and the Oklahoma Sooners women's 4x400 meter relay. They qualified for the national championship. Looking forward to seeing Pal and all of her friends, Boomer Sooner. So let's get into this national championship realness, shall we? This year, the national championship is taking place at the University of Texas at Austin. The semifinals for the men and women are taking place June 5th and 6th, while the finals for the men and women are taking place June 7th and 8th. Recently, the NCAA decided that men and women should compete on separate days, so that way the meets can start on time and end on time. So the men are competing Wednesday and Friday, semis and finals, while the women are competing Thursday and Saturday. In most running events in the semifinals, there are only 3 heats, and the top 2 people from each of those heats will automatically qualify for the national championship. Spots 7 and 8 will be decided by the next 2 fastest times, no matter what heat it is. Now, making it into the final helps out in team implications. The top 8 get points no matter what. So if you finish in first place, you get 10 points, second place gets 2 points, all the way down to 8th place. 8th place will get 1 point. The top 3 finishers in every event also get All-America honors. So instead of looking at individual performances that I expect at the national championship, I'm going to look at the teams with the biggest chances to win the national team title. How I picked my teams to watch: first, I looked at the number of qualifiers for each team. The more you have qualifying for the semifinals, the better your chances of getting those people into the finals, and the better your chances of getting points to add to your team tally. The next thing I looked at are the possibilities of these qualifiers finishing in the top 3 by the end of the meet. So if you finish in the top 3, of course you get individual All-America honors, but the higher you finish, the more points you get. So if you have a small team like Boise State women with only 4 women participants in the semifinal, should they win all of their events, that's 40 points on the board. Now, the USC women last year finished with 53 points, so to have 40 points go against 53 points, that really does shake up things in the grand scheme of it all. Let's start off with the men. What you see on your screen here are my top 8 picks in no particular order to place highly at the national championship. I believe Texas A&M has a strong hurdling core led by Robert Grant and Infinite Tucker. They did have 5 hurdlers participate in the regional semifinals, but only 2 of them qualified for the national semifinals. Still, I do believe that both of these people could get massive points for the Aggies. Their X factor is going to be Devin Dixon. I do have him winning the men's 800, and I do think that the 4x4 relay is going to place really high. They do need to watch out for Baylor and Will London, however. Texas A&M also has qualifiers in field events, including the javelin, that could help them out in their points tally. For once, Oregon doesn't have home field advantage, but I do think they can go toe-to-toe with the best. Starting with their men's 4x1, I do think that they're going to be a threat against schools like Texas Tech. Jonathan Harvey had a stellar 400-meter hurdles run. He was lightning in a bottle his first 200 meters. However, a second in the 400 hurdles could be the difference between first place and last place. So I think he's going to have to up his game even more going into the semifinals. Max Ballmer is a decathlete for the Ducks, and I do think that he's going to do really well at this meet. I do have him finishing in the top 3. The University of Houston, learning, leading. It's very PBS of me. I did grow up in the Houston area, so shout out to everybody that watched PBS growing up. But Houston disappointed me in the men's 4x1. They weren't able to finish at regionals, therefore they are not participating in the national championship. From what I heard, Carl Lewis was hot, and rightfully so. If you haven't checked it out, there is a good documentary series on FloTrack called Speed City, A Season with the Houston Cougars. It's kind of like Hard Knocks, but for track and field. And one thing that Carl Lewis stressed throughout the entire series is that you have got to get your handoffs together. And unfortunately, Houston couldn't pull through in one of the biggest meets of the season. Much like Texas A&M has a strong hurdling core, Houston has a very strong 100-meter core. They had 6 people qualify for regionals. Only 2 of them have made it to the national championship, but it shows you the depth of talent that Houston has in their pipeline. Again, it's unfortunate that their men's 4x1 won't be able to compete, and that leaves points on the board for the Cougars. But I do have their X factor being Mario Burke, who is a senior for the Cougs. He is going to run in the 100 and the 200, and I do have him as one of the top people to watch in both of these events. I think Amir Latin is going to score points in both the high hurdles and the 400-meter hurdles. I also think Kamari Montgomery is going to come up big for the Cougs in the men's 400. You also have to watch Tremaine Jefferson in the long jump because, again, the Cougs could get points off the track and on the field as well. North Carolina A&T, shout out to the two proud Aggies who came for me in my comments and collected me. It is not NCAT, it is North Carolina A&T State University. Thank y'all for that, shout out, much love. So North Carolina A&T, I think that they are going to shock the world this year. I love seeing HBCUs have their shine at a national championship. We haven't had this strong of a team in a very long time coming out of the MEAC. And I think that North Carolina A&T could definitely challenge for one of those top spots in the team title. Since we're on the theme of handoffs in the men's 4x1, the handoffs have got to get better for the Aggies if they're going to place in this event. FSU is coming for them. Memphis and Purdue are raising eyebrows. North Carolina A&T has to be perfect across the board and just get the stick around the track as fast as possible. A&T's biggest factors are going to be Rodney Rowe and Akeem Sirleaf in the 200 and the 400. They both had very impressive runs to make the semifinals in the national championship, and I do expect them to place highly in these events. Speaking of Florida State, I don't think Florida State is going to finish in the top 3 per se, but I do think that they're going to get a lot of team points from their X factor, Andre Ewers. Though he wasn't able to qualify in the men's 100-meter dash, he took out all that anger in the men's 4x1 and the men's 200 to get everybody to the national championship. I also think that Armani Wallace is going to be a top triple jumper to watch, and that's going to get points for the Noles on the board. Since we like to talk about rivals here, I know I can't talk about my Canes yet, but I can talk about Florida State's other rival in Florida. The men's 4x1 had a fun battle with Coppin State. I'm looking forward to seeing that again in the semifinals and quite possibly the final. Grant Holloway is going to be the X factor for the Gators, but in the men's 110-meter hurdles, that's probably going to be one of the funnest events to watch because he has a long-going rivalry with Daniel Roberts out of Kentucky. Now, Daniel Roberts did upset Grant Holloway in the indoors. Grant Holloway came back to win the SECs. Both have the top times coming out of the East region, so this national championship is going to be a sight to see. Roberts gets an excellent start, but Holloway accelerates with every hurdle, so it's going to be a photo finish when it comes down to it. What gives a huge boost for the Gators is Hakeem Sani Brown. He was one of my people to watch in the 100, but he really came through in the 200. He's the top qualifying time out the East, edging people like Rodney Rowe to win the men's 200 in the East region. Should he win the 200, that's going to give Florida a huge 10 points and really make a good case for them in the team title. You also have 3 Gators competing in the men's hammer throw, which could help immensely with points as well. Should they all finish in the top 3, that's 24 points alone. Next, we gotta talk about them Tigers of LSU. Starting with the men's 4x1. I think they're an exciting team to watch, and it's gonna be interesting to see how they compete now that their rival this year, the University of Houston, is out. Jerron Flournoy is going to be one of their X factors. He had the second fastest time in NCAA history in one of his events, and he still has a lot of excitement even after his viral video at the Texas Relays. Mondo Duplantis is going to be one to watch in the pole vault again. In fact, I think he's going to do big things in the World Championships and the Olympics when he competes for Sweden. I also think that Javon Harrison is going to be one to watch in other field events like the long jump and the high jump. LSU could get a lot of points in field and from their sprint core, and it's going to be fantastic to see how they stack up against the other teams in the team title race. However, my national championship pick is going to the tortilla throwers, the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. The only team to beat them in the 4x1 in either region was Purdue. So I think that they're going to be a huge force come the national championship final in this event. Divine Oduduru could get 30 points by himself if he wins the 4x1, the 100, and the 200. In fact, the only person I see him being beat by in the 200 is his teammate Andrew Hudson. O'Dane Lewis is a top triple jumper for the Red Raiders, and he's also the top triple jumper in either region heading into the national championship. However, he's going to have to up his game in the long jump if he's going to want to compete with his teammates and get points on the board. You have Jonah Koech and Vincent Crisp in the men's 800. You have Norman Grimes in the men's 400-meter hurdles. They have qualifiers in other field events, including the javelin. Texas Tech is going to be the team to beat in the men's category. Moving on to the women's category, starting with the Texas Longhorns, because it's a home meet for them. It's like the Texas Relays of the summer, so the crowd will definitely be in their favor. I have Ashton Zamzow winning the women's heptathlon. I think that she's going to be one of the top people to watch going into the Olympic trials, and she's definitely going to show up and show out during her last season in the burnt orange and white. I still want to know if her parents are going to wear burnt orange at the meet. You also have Tiana Daniels and Kennedy Flannel in the women's sprint events like the 100 and the 200. And I do think that the relays are going to run a lot faster now that there is a home meet. Oregon is usually known for their long distance program, but I'm surprised that the Ducks don't have a lot of qualifiers in long distance events at this year's championship. However, they are learning to diversify their portfolio as they are the only team in NCAA history to win what is known as the Triple Crown. They won the National Indoor, National Outdoor, and National Cross Country titles in one season recently. Oregon has a strong 4x1 coming out the West region, and Jessica Hull decided to put all her eggs in the 1500-meter basket, and it's paying off so far. LSU is going to be a major player in the women's race, starting with the women's 4x1. However, they do need to watch their fellow SEC competitors and the University of Jacksonville. Even though this university did not host the East region, it was actually the University of North Florida. Jacksonville showed up and showed out for their hometown, and now they're heading to the national championship. Sha'Carri Richardson is going to be a huge factor for the Tigers. I think she's going to do really well in the sprints and the relay, but she does need to watch out for Cambria Sturgis and Kayla White from North Carolina A&T, as well as Janique Brown from Arkansas in the women's 200. Tamara Clark from Alabama is also going to be a factor in the women's 200. This is some seriously stacked competition in the national championship. Next up, I have my alma mater, the University of Miami. I don't expect them to place in the top 3, but I do think that they can get in the top 8, starting with Michelle Atherley in the women's heptathlon. I think she could finish in the top 2. She'll either win the event or she'll finish second to Ashton Zamzow out of the University of Texas. I'm really impressed with what Tiara McMinn has been able to do in the hurdles, picking up the mantle that Ebony Morrison left when she graduated. And I'm also impressed in the women's 4x400 meter relay. Even though this program lost Sydney McLaughlin because she decided to go pro, I think the University of Kentucky is going to be a dark horse in the women's national championship competition. Chloe Abbott has one of the top times in the 400 this season, and Abby Steiner is holding her own in an already stacked women's 200 meter run. I think the 4x1 could stun the crowd and upset a whole lot of teams, but the 4x4 is currently sitting on the bubble heading into the semifinals. Next up, I have North Carolina A&T. I think the women's 4x1 needs to be really careful with their handoffs if they're going to challenge for some points in the final. They also have 3 200-meter runners in the semifinal heading into Austin. In fact, one of their runners beat out a Kentucky runner in this event. They both ran a 23.092 in the women's 200 in 2 separate heats. How the judges decided the 24th spot was that they had to compile a photo finish, and it turns out that the A&T runner beat out the Kentucky runner by 10 1,000ths of a second. Crazy! Kayla White switched from hurdles to sprints and is paying off very well for her. She's one of the top 100-meter runners in the world this season, and she is the heavy favorite to win this event. I think of the 200, she needs to watch out for her teammate Cambria Sturgis, but they both have some of the top times in the NCAA this season. Madeline Akobundu could get a lot of points in the women's 100-meter hurdles, but she does need to get off to a better start because Tiara McMinn, a couple of runners from Florida State, and a couple of runners from Arkansas could beat her at the line. Honestly, I think the national championship is going to come down to 2 teams. It's going to come down to Arkansas and USC. Arkansas has 17 qualifiers heading into the semifinals, so if all of them should make the finals, that is a lot of points up for grabs for the Razorbacks. Arkansas has also done a really good job diversifying their portfolio. They have competitors in the long distance, middle distance, sprinting events, field events. This is what you want to see from a team that is aggressively competing for a national championship. I think Arkansas challenges off the rip in the women's 4x1. I think that's going to be a fun photo finish to get this party started heading into Saturday's competition. In the sprinting events, the West Regionals are going to strike again when you have Chanel Brissett and Anna Cockrell from USC going against Janique Brown of Arkansas, along with her teammate Peyton Chadwick. I think there are going to be some fireworks in the women's 200 as well, as you'll have 2 Hogs going against 3 women of Troy, should they all make the final. Arkansas has a set of twins that I fully expect to finish in the top 5 in the women's pole vault, and they also have to watch out for Kethlyn Campbell in the women's 400 because I do think she could get points in that event as well. I think that this team title is going to come down to the women's 4x400 meter relay, and it's going to be a sight to see. It could possibly upstage last year's national championship 4x4, which was already a SportsCenter top 10 in its own right. Since I've already referenced them, USC rounds out my women's table heading into the national championship. They have a runner in almost every running event heading into the semifinals in Austin, which again has huge point implications. They have the top 2 times in both the women's 4x1 and the 4x4. In fact, the 4x4 smoked their entire heat going into the national championship. So I'm very excited to see how they're gonna up the ante even more so in Austin. Anna Cockrell is competing in both hurdles events in addition to the 4x4 relay, so she has a lot of core strength at use here. I think Chanel Brissett is also going to be a person to watch in the hurdles. USC has a couple of 200-meter runners that could get them a lot of points as well, and you also have to watch out for Kyra Constantine in an already stacked 400-meter run. The team title is going to be wire to wire, and I'm very excited to see it. But currently, my pick is the women of Troy of the University of Southern California to fight on and persevere and get their 2nd title in a row. That's it for my picks. Best of luck to everybody competing at the national championship this year, and congratulations on one stellar season. Be sure to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, YouTube, all of them if you want to. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk soon.